Hello, everyone, and you're very welcome to another podcast on narcscon, where we deal with all things related to narcissists so that we know what we're dealing with, basically, in a nutshell. Today, we're going to read out a very generous subscriber's story, which we do from time to time here on this channel. And please feel free to write in your experience with a narcissist. I usually will read them out without identifying features and maybe give a little bit of an analysis along the way. So this particular story is from a workplace setting with somebody who is educated or had educated themselves in relation to narcissists. It has a good ending, which doesn't always happen with narcissists, as we know, no matter how much we do know. But I think that this gives us a message of hope. We learn from each other. We keep each other held up. We keep each other buoyed up with hope and support. And that's really important to anybody that's dealt with one of these type of presentations of humanity. That's the only way I can describe a narcissist in their malignancy, when they're being extremely malignant. They're very, very destructive. So not all employers or companies are educated in this particular dynamic, but they're becoming more so, which is hopeful. And the coercive control law has become part of many countries' legal systems. And if anyone doesn't know about that or is dealing with a narcissist in the court system, that is something that you can look into and see if it's available if it's a thing, if it's recognized by law, the coercive control rule in your state or country. So now let's get into reading the subscriber's description of what happened to them. And I will thank you once again for your support and for allowing us to share this within our community. So I have to put the glasses on. I hope I don't knock myself out on the microphone or something. Right. Hi, Paula. I extended this version a bit. She kindly wrote into me before, and she's just fleshed the story out a bit to give more detail, which is kind of you to take the time to do that. Let me introduce myself. I'm a 50-year-old woman working as a quality engineer at a pharmaceutical company. I'm a HSP person. I think that means highly sensitive person, and an awakened empath, in brackets, due to a previous experience with a narcissist. That is a term we use in our community when we have been made aware that such a thing as a narcissist exists. And we call ourselves awakened and empath because we have empathy, which narcissists don't. So, from the second conversation, I already knew I was dealing with a narcissist, psycho, or sociopath. But this time I was prepared through the podcasts and good feedback from you. So keep up the good work. I may have gotten to answer a comment. Sometimes I can, but I'm time short on the comments. So if you have a specific question, hopefully someone else will pick it up, or you can come to me for coaching. And coaching is narcscon@gmail.com. That's the coaching inquiries email. You'll see that anywhere in the bio anyway. So if anyone needs a specific question discussed or answered. Okay, so you recognized that this person was possibly possibly a narcissist from your experience and what you'd learned. My second encounter with a narc. I became the target, in brackets, for 6 weeks. Again, without actually realizing it. In the beginning, I could tell that he was attracted to me. I trusted my gut and the energy feeling he gave me. We have said a good few times before, if you feel something's off in your gut, trust your gut. Just trust it. Just listen to it. Don't override it with the brain process. It's very, very important, those initial instincts and warnings that your body gives you about somebody. This time I didn't ignore that feeling, the warning your body is giving you. Our company is going to be expanded, and an external company is responsible for the construction of the new plant. In December, I met this person for the first time. He occupied our reserved meeting room with other men. I asked them if they could leave the meeting room, since they made no reservation for this room, so that we could have our meeting with a supplier of lab equipment. This person introduced himself by name and asked if I worked on the first floor, which I thought was a strange question at the time. The first floor houses the CEO, directors, managers, and engineers. I now know that he asked about this to assess, inverted commas, my importance in the company. I didn't see this person again until the beginning of the spring. From then on, I ran into him regularly as work at the new plant began. Every time he saw me, he spoke to me or mingled in conversations with me and my colleagues, wanting my attention. The third time I met this person, he was with another contractor. He spoke to me again and told me he was single. His wife left him with a 6-year-old daughter, having a hard time as a single father caring for his daughter. This person is 60 years old. The other contractor left me with him, and I was quite annoyed I was left alone with him, especially because I didn't know him, and he immediately gave too much information about his personal life. I replied politely, "I'm sorry to hear that, and indeed it must be difficult as a single father caring for a 6-year-old child." He wanted to tell me the whole story, but not on site. So, boundary crossing in a workplace situation where obviously the author of the email hadn't given him any signals that she was interested, in fact that she was quite wary of him. He launched in anyway with details of his personal life, and he played the sympathy card. Okay, he wanted to tell me the whole story, but not on site. He also introduced himself as a very capable, fantastic and smart engineer, worked on many international projects and earned a lot of money. Isn't that incredible? How all that information was bombarded at you, which is initially the kind of love bomb phase, where the narcissist will big themselves up as successful. What he's done there essentially is given the impression, a strong impression, that he's successful, he has a lot of money, and that he's been badly treated, and that he's left alone to care for his young child, and that he's a caring, devoted, hard put upon individual, good human, in other words. He's just a good all-rounder. I mean, that's what he's trying to get across there. I didn't respond to that. I thought, wow, he's quite full of himself. And this already put me on guard. Good girl yourself. Good girl yourself. Now, he tried to get in touch with me more under false pretenses. He asked for information about the quality control lab modification that he had to follow up. He gave me his cell phone and email and wanted me to update him regarding the QC project. So I sent him that information by email. My cell is included in the mail. After a few mailings back and forth, he asked me to go for a walk. I agreed to go for a walk. That was possibly not such a good idea, but he may have put that across in that he wanted to discuss work, which I would imagine he introduced to you. I imagine he made it seem okay to you. And now you're explaining why you agreed to go for the walk. The problem was that I had to stay friendly because there was a good chance that I would have to work with him in the future for validation activities in the new plant. In the meantime, the group moved from the trailers to, yes, the first floor of the building where I work. It's been more than a week since I heard from this person. Not that I minded. I secretly hoped he would forget about the walk. One of the days when I was going home, he intercepted at the elevator, starting the conversation again about going for a walk. But he didn't. We agreed to go for a walk on Saturday the following week. I'm not quite sure what that meant there. One of the days when I was going home, he intercepted the elevator, starting the conversation again about going for a walk. But he didn't. I'm not sure what that meant. Okay, we agreed to go for a walk on Saturday the following week. After some talking for a bit, it turned out we had the same interest, namely music. This is pretty classic. He only talked about himself, his education, his experience, his parents, etc. The next day, late in the evening, 10 p.m, he started sending a lot of WhatsApp messages, mostly music, with sometimes sexually suggestive hints, insinuating that I dared to do anything. I asked why he thought that about me. He replied because he was drinking rum, in brackets, and a lot of it. From the messages he sent, you could tell he was not okay emotionally. He avoided all questions regarding private matters or deeper feelings within him that made him sad. He was joking about me and the walk, saying that he would hit me with a shovel gently, in brackets, implying it was a joke. We had this conversation on a Friday. Didn't hear anything from him the whole weekend. I left it as it was. Each time he saw me passing by or talking to someone, in the evening, I received messages. Okay, I understand why you went for the walk with him in order to, you thought you'd be working with him in the future on a project. That's a step too far. That's not something that should be necessary in work. Probably better if you had the sense of him to just keep it very, very professional and always make sure somebody else was there. But sometimes our curiosity gets the better of us and we attempt to override the feeling, the instinctual feeling in our body that this person is not right. And we come up with ideas that maybe we should put that aside and just, get on with the person and maybe we're wrong in some way. But once you give a narcissist an in, once you've, say, agreed to go for a walk with them, in private, then they believe they have an in to you and that they can, if they've gotten through that initial boundary, they feel that they can break through every other boundary that you might set in place. And this guy pushed. I mean, he sent inappropriate texts in the guise of friendship with shared interest in music. That's the way they operate. Small incremental steps. You give anything away and that will be used against you to manipulate you further and to break your boundaries further. Okay, so anytime he saw you during the day, that was the new boundary he was breaking. He decided then that he had the right, because he'd seen you, to extend the friendship in inverted commas and created a sense of familiarity between the two of you, as if the two of you had something outside of the work situation. I tried to get rid of him by mirroring him, being as uninteresting as possible, ignoring him, you name it, nothing worked. For 3 weeks, we had conversations at the chill out. I'm not sure what that meant. He was always looking for my attention and validation. I let him talk and I listened. He played me for a fool thought my silence was a weakness in the assumption that he was the clever one. So I let him believe this, not knowing that I was already 2 steps ahead. He was smearing his ex-wife, calling her crazy, always pretending he was single. He didn't realise that I had seen a picture of his child and wife as the background on his cell phone. I'm very sure he was or is not single and is still married to the same person. That is what my gut is telling me. Despite me warning him several times not to underestimate me, he kept lying, making up stories. He saw me as a challenge, I guess. I didn't hear from him again for the next week, and in brackets, there was no triggering, I suppose. That Saturday we were going for a walk. Since we hadn't agreed on a time or location for the walk, I didn't ask, and in brackets, CF4 joke. On Friday he cancelled the walk and suggested a new date 2 weeks later. He asked if I was angry. I said no. He replied that he was glad I wasn't angry. I asked him to erase my cell phone. More than a week passed until I passed him after a meeting. Said good morning and he replied he wasn't okay, which triggered my empathy again. Okay, on the face of it, I'm wondering why you went for the second walk with him, but I'm guessing he was putting you under a fair amount of pressure and playing the sympathy card. However, use this as a big lesson. Once the feeling is off, don't engage. When you've been for that first walk and he's overstepped your boundaries and contacted you at night, don't engage further. I'm guessing that maybe there was a slight fascination with how you could cope with another narcissist. I don't know. Or else he put you under a lot of pressure to feel sorry for him or to get on with him in the workplace situation. It's very difficult once we get entangled in their web at all, even when we have the knowledge, not to be drawn in. Very difficult indeed. And then when we're not being drawn in, then they play the game of ignoring you, which is push and pull. And it does trigger you emotionally because you've decided maybe to ignore them and then they'll ignore you. And you're kind of, those old feelings will come back up in you if you can be triggered by the abandonment and the someone else ignoring you and that kind of feeling that you're not important, or why are they doing that? And you're curious. So be very careful of yourself emotionally if you can still be triggered. And these guys know how to do it, so be really careful. Okay, this time I contacted him because I was feeling guilty. He said he was sick and was having problems because of it. A few messages were exchanged, followed by silence over the weekend. The following Monday, he suggested going to a restaurant because I didn't want to go for a walk with him anymore. That week on Sunday, the restaurant was booked. He started flirting and the messages became very sexually charged. I spoke to him about it and he said it was just a joke. That same week, on Wednesday, he called for about an hour, telling me he worked from home supposedly because he was sick, but he had forgotten that he had told me a few weeks earlier that he had taken 2 days off a week during the Easter holidays, in brackets, the first lies. During that call, for some reason, he started talking about sex, to which I replied that we were only going to the restaurant and that going out and having sex were 2 separate things. We were going out so that he could talk about the things that were bothering him. I made that very clear. On Thursday, he asked to go for a coffee in the cafeteria. During that short conversation, I discovered more lies, and he started a smear campaign against his ex, inverted commas, wife. I was speechless. I decided to go on Sunday having lunch with him, to listen, and to make it clear in a gentle manner that I would rather not have any more contact with him. And of course, I'm sure you know in retrospect, it would have been better to just cut off totally, altogether, no contact, because there's a mixed message going on. You know, even though you had empathy for his problems, he didn't care about that. He was using that as a manipulation to create an idea, illusion of intimacy between the two of you. You know, even a friend's intimacy that could be extended into something further. So he was breaking your boundaries all the time. He was getting you to go for a walk. When you said you didn't want to go for a walk, he said, let's go to a restaurant. I really need to talk to you. I have problems and issues. And then he would, get you to the restaurant, and then he would go further and talk about sexual stuff. It's all a process they go through. You are the one that has to say no to them. On the date, the exaggerated stories in which he was the hero were the main theme. He said he has a hit list with already 2 persons on it that he would like to kill them before he dies. I wanted to tell him this date was a one-time thing and I would rather not have any contact. But upon hearing about the hit list, I decided it was best not to mention it during this date. So basically he's giving you a warning at this stage, so you don't know which way to move. It's kind of like a spider catching you in a web and entangling you further. Definitely stay away the minute you get that instinctive feeling about someone. Just stay away. He also started testing my boundaries by making comments about me and physically touching me on the front of the shoulder with a smirk on his face, still thinking I was a fool. Almost at the end of the date, his ex-wife called 4 times, but he didn't answer. He said she was coming over to his house with his daughter. I said, I'll isolate myself so you can answer your phone. He said that wasn't necessary, that otherwise he would have to lie. I was like, really? I asked him if he was divorced. He said that this process was going on, which I did not believe. Then he asked to have sex with me, stating how good he is in bed. I replied that I wasn't into one-night stands, romances, flings, stuff like that. Then he said something about ladies of the night. Too bad I didn't hear it well. He was probably referring to me because I get a lot of attention from other men and I refused him. Despite that I didn't care what he had to say about me, I told him he better go home. He absolutely had to accompany me to my car, which I refused, but he still came along. On the way to my car, he pushed me aside. He didn't even look back to see if I had fallen. He walked forward as if he was royalty. So delusional. When I wanted to leave, he suddenly grabbed me, kissed me, and stuck his tongue in my mouth before I could do anything. He wanted to see how I reacted when he didn't respect my boundaries. He was so excited that he couldn't wait to go out on a second date. Hilarious. Let him believe that. 2 days later, I was discarded. Best news ever. When I said that I wanted to call him, at that point I became a threat to him and his family. I also informed him that I had seen through him, that he was a narcissist, and that I could file a report regarding inappropriate behaviour at work. He laughed at it, trying to intimidate me. I could feel his anger. The next day I had to undergo a planned shoulder surgery, which would require me to be out of work for 1 month. After that month, I was very nervous about going back to work. I spent a lot of time thinking about what to do next with the narcissist during my absence. One of the first days after returning, I was standing with a colleague in the chill-out area for a coffee break. I heard some noise and some commotion in the sink near the coffee machine behind me. The narc knew I was back. He'd seen me and there he was standing behind me, trying to get my attention that way by making some noise, to trigger or provoke me, maybe. I didn't turn around and ignored him. I could feel his strong energy, very anxious and present. Yeah, it's incredible how we can feel energies when we're open to it. I told the whole story to my colleague, that he pretended to be single so he could sleep with other women. The decision was made to inform the head of our department about the narc and his intentions. My company reported the incident to his company, saying that the narc was no longer welcome on our site due to inappropriate behaviour. His company fired him. He threatened to sue, but we haven't heard anything from him or the lawsuit since then. I feel his energy now and then when he thinks of me, in brackets, in my solar plexus and sacral chakra. Sometimes sad, sometimes angry. I'm pretty sure he's having a narcissistic collapse. QC head says we made the right decision by removing the narcissist from our site, ensuring no other victims could be affected. Thanks to you and your insights, we avoided worse. So we still do make mistakes, when we come up against somebody like that sometimes. And I'm sure going forward that if you get that feeling inside you, you won't even go as far as you did go, by getting to know that person. I can understand your motivation for wanting a happy workplace, but he was making it very quickly into something that was inappropriate by asking you to go for a walk. It would have been much better to say, no, if we need to discuss work, let's go for a coffee, surrounded by other people, and you set a very firm boundary that you're not up for friendship, that this is the workplace, and that's the only thing you're agreeing to. Because with a narcissist, you give them an inch and they will take 10 miles. So you can't do what you would do with a normal person and say, well, let's discuss the project, on a walk or whatever, and see if we can come up with some brainstorming and ideas together in a less formal setting. Not appropriate with a narcissist, as you have seen, and hopefully other people will see from the example shown. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Bye for now.